Hey everyone, George with the Art of Water, and I want to talk to you today about Betta tanks and what I think the requirements are for a healthy fish, and talk to you a little bit about escaping a tank for a Betta fish, what I think some of the requirements are for what will make them a healthy fish and live long. So the first thing I want to talk about is the size of the tank. Number one, I think that anything less than 5 gallons is not a good idea. I know a lot of people get these fish at stores and they're in little small containers, and they basically live their lives out in small environments like that. I think that's not a good idea, to be honest with you. So any betta fish that I've ever had get a minimum of a 5 gallon tank. They get a heater and they get a full filtration system, just like any other tropical fish out there. I think they need to be treated exactly the same. Now, this tank here has been up and running for a while. This particular fish is in my wife's office, and it kind of needed a new look. So what we did is we rescaped it here in the last couple of days. Now, I don't do anything really sophisticated with a betta tank because they're just a solo fish. I may put some autocinclids in here at some point as algae might grow. I try to prevent that from happening by doing really good water changes, 50% a week, twice a week, I should say, and use really good dechlorination processes and that sort of thing. So, what I would say to you is that these fish can live long lives. I have some friends that have had betta fish that have been kept in good tanks like this, 5 gallons or even 10 gallons, and have had a few tank mates, autocinclids being one of them, neon tetras. You can try those. Sometimes you win on that, sometimes you lose. I tried it with this particular guy, and if you look at the colors on him, he's almost identical to the neon tetra, so that did not work out very well. So what I would tell you is that if you're going to put any kind of fish in with them, really study up on it, and it's really kind of a touch and go thing. It's not necessarily going to work out in your favor, and the reason I say that is because these fish are very, very personality oriented, and they're very different from each other, and they tend to have their own ideas about whether or not they want tank mates or not. So with that being said, this particular fish does not have any tank mates right at the moment. He has had autocinclids in here with him before, and he got along just fine with them, did not bother him, and they actually benefited the tank. I did not put them back in at this point here, because this is a brand new scape, except for some of the substrate and the filter, which automatically cycled the tank. But there is not enough algae in here right now for autocinclids to survive in here. Basically, we've got some crypts, we've got some little moss ball in here for more for looks than anything. I've never really seen them sleep on the thing, but anyways, there are some Nubius in here, the Nubius Nano, which are the smaller versions of that, and just some driftwood and some dragonstone, which kind of gives a nice look to the tank and gives it a little bit of character without being too boring. Again, this is my wife's office, so, you know, other than her working in here 9 to 5 every day, there really isn't a lot for anybody to really look at, but we just thought the tank needed a little bit of an update, and I thought it was an opportunity, since we were doing the update, to really talk about some of the things that are required for a betta fish, and to make sure that everybody understands my feelings on that, and understands that these are tropical fish just like anything else, and that they do require a filtration and a heater. Now, you can try betta fish without either one of those. My thoughts on that is it's not right to do. But the second thing I've always noticed with a betta fish in another environment where they don't have filtration and some of the other things that they might need, such as a heater, they're very lethargic. And they're lethargic for a reason, because these fish live in water temperatures that can be up to 78 to 82 degrees in those rice paddies back in Indonesia and places along the Asian, sub-Asian borders along Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand, all of those areas in there where these fish are found in the wild. They're domesticated for the most part. These fish don't even look anything like the originals in the wild, but their requirements are still the same. The genetics are still there, so you really have to take into consideration that all of these things are important. So having said that, as far as feeding betta fish, one of the biggest things that people make a mistake on is overfeeding them. And I feed once a day a small amount of maybe just 1 to 2 pellets in the morning, and possibly a little bit of a bloodworm, sometimes live, sometimes not. If I do have some brine shrimp available, I will put a few of those in there. But one of the biggest problems with betta fish that people tend to make the mistake with is overfeeding them. They get extremely constipated and bloated, and then they die. As simple as that. It's very hard to bring one back once they've gotten to that condition of having that bloat and having the problems of not being able to pass food. So the other nice thing about a small tank like this is you can keep it rather clean very easily. And the reason I say that is because it's so small that a betta fish, when you see the waste on a dark substrate like this, by the way, this is fluval Amazonian stratus, which I use on almost all of my tanks with a few exceptions. But this particular substrate is so easy to see waste on that you can just go in there with a turkey baster or something like that, and you can basically clean it up when you're doing your water changes. So it makes for a very healthy environment for the fish. It makes it easy to care for the tank and so forth. So one of the other things that I wanted to say about the betta fish is this, that putting females in and trying to breed them, really do your homework on that before you make that decision, because a lot of times it just doesn't work out very well. Now, there are people that do it and they're very successful at it. There's a couple of people on channels all around YouTube that are very successful breeders of betta fish, but it's their business to do that, and that's all they do, pretty much nothing else. And so they're very good at it. So I would say to you, if you're going to try it, please make sure that if you do, that you read up on it and you understand how the process works with the betta fish. Now, you'll find that the males will make a bubble nest in a good environment. My guess is over the next few days, I'll find that this particular fish is back to making a bubble nest again too. When I took the tank down, he had a small one going, but now that I've redone it, it's been about 2 days. I don't see any bubble nest right now, but my guess is as we go on over the next week or so, this particular fish will start to do that. Anyways, if you have any questions, leave a comment. If you have any things that you want to add to what I've said that you don't agree with, that's fine. I'll be glad to answer that and debate that with you. And again, to go over just the things that I mentioned, the minimum tank that I think is required for these fish is a 5-gallon tank. Number 2, they must have a heater, and I keep things at around 78 to 80 degrees, depending on the heater that's in here. I think this was right around 79 degrees, which is absolutely perfect for this particular fish. And also a filtration system of some kind is very, very important, just like it is with any fish. So I think that if we cover those points on that and the feeding, don't feed too much. Be careful about that, because like I said, if you get into this bloat type situation that these fish can tend to get into, it's really hard to bring them back sometimes from that. So anyways, George with the Art of Water, please subscribe, please leave a comment, and please give a thumbs up on that, and we'll talk to you soon.